So, as promised, part two of the discussion on Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. If you haven't seen part one, that's going to be linked down in the description box below. I think you will greatly benefit from seeing part one first before seeing this video. So, I recommend that you go see that one first. Again, the link to that's going to be down in the description box below. In part one, we discuss the Dooku focused episodes, as well as I give more context to my general thoughts on Tales of the Jedi as a whole. So, in this video, we are going to be shifting focus over to the Ahsoka episodes. And I want to clarify here that even though I found the Dooku episodes to be more interesting, that by no means is to suggest that the Ahsoka episodes are bad. In fact, quite the opposite, because these were all really good episodes. The entire miniseries was absolutely fantastic and peak Star Wars at its finest. It's just with Ahsoka that we have seen her so much in Star Wars media. Obviously, the Clone Wars, Rebels, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and she's even getting her own show very, very soon, hopefully. Seeing Ahsoka again in this mini-series just feels like more of an extension of what has come before. That is to say, it's an extension of Dave Filoni's love for Ahsoka. Remember that Ahsoka is Filoni's baby. This is the character that he made, that he created, and that's why she's so prominent in shows and media that he has some involvement in. And I'm absolutely fine with that. Ahsoka, I like Ahsoka, but she wasn't always a character that was so beloved by the fandom. When she was first introduced in the Clone Wars animated movie, a lot of people found her to be very annoying. But as the show went on, and by the time that she left the Jedi Order in Season 5 of the Clone Wars, people have fallen in love with Ahsoka. People love Ahsoka and they want more of her. So I'm not against having more of her at all. It's just that Dooku is so underrated as a character and that we see so little of him. His backstory has not really been expanded upon, at least in canon, except with the novel Dooku Jedi Lost and now with these episodes in Tales of the Jedi. It's just because of how underused Dooku is. His episodes just simply piqued my interest far more. That being said, the Ahsoka episodes are pretty good as well, and let's go ahead and jump into the Ahsoka episodes. We'll start with episode 1, and here we have the birth and first year of Ahsoka on her home world. It was nice to see Targrutan society. That's the species that Ahsoka and Shakti belong to, and how their society operates. Obviously very nature-oriented. Obviously they have a close tie to nature and by extension to the Force itself. So much so that the elder woman of the village Ahsoka originates from is able to recognize that she is Force sensitive. And what I find interesting about this is that, okay, so in some cultures in the Star Wars galaxy, they use different terminology for the Force and the light and the dark sides than what we are accustomed to from the movies. A good example of this is the Night Sister Witches of Dathomir, where Asajj Ventress comes from. They refer to the Force as the spirits, and they refer to the light side as the winged goddess, and the dark side as I believe it's the fanged god, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong about that one. But this ties into the whole Mortis arc and the ones of Mortis, specifically the daughter and the son, that whole arc from the Clone Wars. But obviously, they have their own Force traditions separate from the Jedi and the Sith. Yes, Asajj Ventress did work for Dooku as a Sith acolyte. That is very, very true. But in terms of general Dathomirian culture, the Night Sisters are really kind of their own thing. However, that's not the case with the Targrutans, because once the elder of the village recognizes the Force in Ahsoka, she says, and I quote, "Jedi. Ahsoka is Jedi." Which the reason I find this to be interesting is because it shows a deep connection, a close relationship between the Targrutans and the Jedi Order. And this actually makes a lot of sense as to why we have prominent Targrutan Jedi masters like Shakti and, of course, Ahsoka herself. If you look at Legends material, there have been Targrutan Jedi for centuries, if not millennia, stemming back to the Old Republic era. And that's one of the reasons why I love the material outside of the films, is for stuff like this, getting to learn about different planets and cultures in the galaxy, which is something the films just don't have time for. Obviously, they have a specific runtime they have to keep to. Togruitans aren't a culture that I'm all too familiar with in Star Wars, but it was nice to get a good insight into their people in this particular episode. So there is a tradition among the Togruitans where the mother takes her baby out on a hunt when they are at least a year old, and the purpose of this is to teach the child the reality and the value of both life and death, which, funnily enough, ties into some of Luke's teachings from The Last Jedi, where he discusses with Rey about the balance of the Force, and one of the examples that he uses is the relationship between life and death. Honestly, one of the few good scenes from the sequel trilogy, and one of the few scenes where Luke is actually acting like the wise Jedi Grand Master that we all expected him to be. But putting my negative feelings for the sequels aside, let's get back to the episode. On this hunt, Ahsoka is taken by this giant carnivorous predator, but she is actually able to use the Force to tame the beast and have it return to the village. This is a very rare Force ability, and I know that Obi-Wan has access to this power as he used it to try and control the monsters in the Geonosis arena scene from Attack of the Clones, and to ride the giant lizard in Revenge of the Sith. I also believe that Ezra from Rebels also possesses this ability as well, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, it is this incident that allows the Elder to recognize that Ahsoka needs to be trained as a Jedi. Now, if you want to know how this plays out, spoilers for the Clone Wars animated series, it is actually Plo Koon who is the one that brings Ahsoka into the Jedi Order. And because of this, Plo Koon and Ahsoka have a pretty close relationship. There's actually a couple of episodes that focus on the two together. If you don't know much about Plo Koon, man, come on. I suggest that you go and read the Legends material. Check out some of his episodes from the Clone Wars. He is honestly one of the coolest Jedi in the franchise. He doesn't get a lot of love in the film. Of course, he's taken out in Order 66 during Revenge of the Sith. But if you check out the Legends material about him, the extended universe stuff, Plo Koon is a really, really cool Jedi. I definitely recommend you look more into him. I mean, the dude even developed a light side version of Force Lightning known as Electric Judgment. That's freaking badass right there. I love Plo Koon. Anyways, all in all, it was nice to see the birth and origin of Ahsoka. And I feel that this is an episode that Dave Filoni probably wanted to do for a long time. He just didn't really have an avenue or a medium through which to do it yet. This is the birth of his favorite character. This is the birth and the origin of the character he created. This had to have been an absolute must-happen project for him for quite a while. So, I'm glad he was finally able to tell this story. Alright, so then we move on to the second Ahsoka episode. We skip ahead to the Clone Wars era, and Ahsoka has just completed a test dealing with some training droids, which Obi-Wan and Yoda are very impressed with her skills, but Anakin believes that in order to really prove herself, she needs better training partners. And this is where Commander Rex and the Clone Troopers come in. Again, spoilers for the final season of the Clone Wars, but at the end of that series, Ahsoka does get caught up in Order 66, as do many other Jedi. But unlike other Jedi, Ahsoka obviously survives her encounter with the brainwashed clones. This episode explains why she was able to survive against the clones when Jedi who are more experienced than her could not. Anakin in this episode puts Ahsoka through a tough trial defending herself from clone blasters, obviously set to stun, and she fails a lot during this test, but is able to ultimately prove herself to Anakin. So when Order 66 finally came down, Ahsoka was trained specifically to deal with clones. She wasn't just trained to fight simple-minded droids or to fight other lightsaber wielders. She could handle the battle-hardened, battle-bred clone troopers. The irony here is fantastic. I love this setup. I love this explanation. It was Anakin Skywalker, the man who would become Darth Vader and participate in Order 66 himself, who inadvertently saved Ahsoka from being a victim of that same attack. The irony of that cannot be understated. This was something that really didn't need to be explained, but the fact that Filoni did explain it and explained it in such a clever manner is really, really good. And it's another reason why this man needs to be the head of Star Wars from a creative standpoint. This was an episode I didn't know that I wanted, and it was a great explanation as to how Ahsoka was able to survive Order 66. So that leads us into the final Ahsoka episode, which takes place after Order 66 and begins right at the end of Revenge of the Sith, specifically Padme's funeral. You want to talk about a fanboy moment? This was fanboyism done right. Ahsoka Tano was actually there in Revenge of the Sith. She was actually there at Padme's funeral. Wow. But, I mean, this totally makes sense. This makes absolute sense, as anyone who has seen the Clone Wars will know Ahsoka and Padme were very close friends, kind of like sisters. And it is very much so implied. In fact, it's practically confirmed that at some point during the war, Ahsoka did become aware of Padme and Anakin's secret marriage. And it's also implied that Obi-Wan kind of came to figure this out himself at some point too. That Commander Rex, who is very close to Anakin and Ahsoka, also came to figure this out as well. So, you know, Ahsoka did become aware of Padme and Anakin's secret marriage. That is very much, I mean, it's practically confirmed, pretty much, that she knew. So she was very close to Padme, obviously her being the wife of Ahsoka's master. And, man, seeing Ahsoka in this scene, obviously she was hiding her identity as the clone troopers would still be looking for Jedi. But seeing her in this scene, I'm not going to lie, it made me emotional. And Star Wars has not made me emotional in a very long time. I didn't cry, but, you know, I felt my eyes starting to water. This was an absolutely beautiful scene, and I think it's a really nice bit of closure that we needed in regards to the Ahsoka-Padme connection. These two women that were so important in Anakin Skywalker's life, their connection, their relationship, and seeing this as the closure for that relationship from the Clone Wars, as someone that, you know, was watching the Clone Wars on a week-to-week basis when it was airing on Cartoon Network, following these characters throughout this conflict, this brought me back to those good old days. This brought me back to the pre-Disney era, and man, I loved it. I mean, I'm getting emotional talking about it right now, so let's move on with the episode. We also get to see Ahsoka and Bail Organa, the adoptive father of Leia, one of the senators who becomes a leader of the future rebellion. He actually confronts Ahsoka, and he saves her from some clones that were patrolling the area. Bell, even at this very early point, was already trying to recruit Ahsoka into the rebellion. But at this point, Ahsoka just wanted to disappear. However, he did manage to give her a secure communication device for if she changed her mind later on. So it was, and I haven't read the canon Ahsoka novel that takes place during this time period, but I have heard some reviews say that this actually contradicts that novel in the first encounter that Bell and Ahsoka had post Revenge of the Sith. I can't comment on that because obviously I haven't read the novel, but I thought this was great, okay? And whatever was used in that novel, whatever their encounter was like, let's just consider this canon, because having it take place at Padme's funeral, that is beautiful. I'm taking this as my canon, okay? This is how that went down as far as I'm concerned, because this was just too good of a scene for it not to be the canon version. So after Ahsoka departs from Naboo, departs from the funeral, we get another small time skip to show Ahsoka living as a normal person in a village on a remote planet. This village girl is about to be crushed by a stack of hay when Ahsoka secretly uses the Force to save her, though the girl does notice and confronts her about this. They end up becoming friends, but Ahsoka wants the girl to keep the truth that she is a Jedi on the down low, obviously because the Empire is hunting Jedi. However, this village girl's brother, this freaking idiot that the entire episode I just wanted to punch this guy in the face, he is drunk on the Imperial Kool-Aid. He thinks Palpatine is the end-all be-all. He thinks Palpatine is the shit. And he does end up contacting the Empire regarding Ahsoka. Freaking idiot. an Inquisitor is sent out after contact is made, and this Inquisitor ends up burning down the village. And because Ahsoka's not there, like Ahsoka and this girl were off selling crops to a town or something, and they get back, the village is on fire, almost everybody is dead except for the girl's brother and her father. And we get this brief fight between the Inquisitor and Ahsoka, but Ahsoka almost one-shots this dude. I mean, she is so powerful at this point. She does end up contacting Bail Organa to get the village girl and her family to safety, and hopefully the girl's brother will stop being a Kool-Aid drinking bitch. She does end up contacting Bail Organa to get the village girl and her family to safety, and this is how Ahsoka actually ends up finally joining the rebellion, which of course leads into her role in Star Wars Rebels. So again, another really fantastic episode. I especially love the Padme funeral scene. That was so freaking good. Like with the Dooku episodes, again, Dave Filoni just hits it out of the park with the Ahsoka episodes as well, making for an overall fantastic miniseries. My only complaint is that I want more. I wish this could have been a 10-episode miniseries with maybe 5 episodes focusing on Dooku, 5 episodes focusing on Ahsoka, but I'm sure we're going to get more Tales of the Jedi stuff in the future. This miniseries, once again, reminds me about, just how much Dave Filoni really understands and appreciates this franchise and these characters, and why he should be the creative leader of Lucasfilm, because in my opinion, he is the spiritual successor to George Lucas himself. And Kathleen Kennedy needs to go, and Dave Filoni needs to be in charge of all creative decisions going forward. So that being said, as long as Kathleen Kennedy is there, as long as she's running the show, I may not be excited for the new Star Wars movie that Disney is working on. But what I am excited for is for more Dave Filoni Star Wars projects. I will watch anything Dave Filoni makes because everything he has pumped out so far has just been gold. Anyways, tell me your thoughts on Tales of the Jedi down below. Don't forget to check out part 1 where we discuss the Dooku episodes. That will be linked down in the description box below. Also in the description box below, I will link you to my video reacting to the news of a Star Wars movie potentially coming in 2025. If you want more Star Wars content, if you want more pop culture content, be sure to subscribe, like the video, click the bell for notifications, and if you're into gaming, check out my gaming channel, also linked down below. Until the next video, until the next Star Wars video, the next pop culture video, whatever comes first, this is Jesker James with a Z, and I'm signing out.